Hey everybody, welcome back to our podcast with Josh Barton. This is Dr. Moore with Castle Rock Men's Health and Caveman Agenda podcast. So what we really want to dive into is Josh had a really mean ass COVID experience, and I really kind of want to dive into that. I think starting with the cruise. So go for it.
Okay. Actually, started the day before in Miami, so I started kind of getting the...
When was this?
So this would have been, date-wise, probably 10th, maybe 11th of December of 2021.
Got it. So we're still in the... Let me just think back. Are we still in the original COVID strain? I think we are.
I believe so, yes.
Right. Well, we'll do some research on that. Go ahead. Because that was the most virulent one.
Yeah.
Got it.
So it started there. I started getting, head sweats, kind of just didn't sleep well that night. Flew out to Miami from here to jump on a cruise.
Time out. You said December. Yes, we're good. Sorry.
Yep. Yeah. And in the process of doing that, of course, got on the cruise. Day one on the cruise boat. Started feeling a little more off, kind of lightheaded, just kind of congested a little bit, just not feeling good, like getting a cold, I guess I would say. And then by day 3, I kind of realized something was wrong. It's not getting better. And that was day 2 on the cruise.
And did you notice some shortness of breath?
Yeah, it wasn't so much shortness of breath at that point as it just kind of felt like I had a heavy feeling. Like my whole body just kind of had a heavy feeling.
Yeah.
And then, I tried to kind of power through it. And then by day 3, it was pretty much, I was in bed the rest of the cruise. And I had a fear because I was told that if you're told you had COVID during the cruise, they dump you at the next stop to go to the hospital. And so no
matter where that
is,
it's in Haiti.
Doesn't matter. And so I chose to just stay in my room. I was on the cruise for other reasons to help support my mother at the time.
Were the kids there?
No, it was just me, my grandmother, and my mother.
Good.
It was kind of one last big trip for her because she was, diagnosed with ALS and was given less than a year, and we just wanted to get her out and have fun and do whatever she could.
Bravo. Okay.
So, but I ended up staying in the room. I started developing that heavy feeling did turn into shortness of breath. Full body sweats and chills to the point where my entire bed was wet. I mean, it was pretty bad. And then by the time we left port on the last port day,
where was this?
This was down in Mexico. I forget which port. Maybe Cozumel, but I'd have to double check. But yeah, we left port, and as soon as we pulled out of port, I called infirmary.
Yeah.
And then
because the next stop is America.
Yeah, 2 days later.
Got it.
And so I called the infirmary to come and get me, and I told them my symptoms, and of course they said, they might have COVID, and they wanted to check me. They sent a wheelchair up because at that point I could hardly walk. I just felt dizzy.
Yeah.
They took me down to the infirmary, ran a bunch of tests, said that I did test positive for COVID. I also had pneumonia. They weren't equipped to do any other further.
Did they tell you what your oxygen level was?
Yeah, at that time it was around 86.
Got it. So, guys, a quick heads up. 86% sounds really good, like on a test.
Yeah.
That's a B+. I'll try to put up a graphic with Phil's help of the oxyhemoglobin curve. But essentially what happens, as you'll see on the curve, is that once you hit 90, 91, it's like you're on the edge of a cliff of danger. So 89 is you're falling off the cliff. 86 is like you're halfway down the cliff to death. No kidding. I mean, that's like, it sounds good. It ain't good at all. Carry on.
So they immediately stuck me on, I forget what it was, like 3 or 4 liters of oxygen on a nasal.
Yep.
Oxygen. They stuck me in antibiotics, but they were limited on what they could do above and beyond that.
Yep.
And so they basically said their goal was to just give me some antibiotics on what they had, which wasn't exactly what I needed, but it would help hold the pneumonia at bay.
Yeah.
And so they did that for the 2.5 days I was on there. We pull into port. They exfact me via ambulance out of the ship at 1 a.m. when we pulled in the morning. And they took me to, I think it was Miami-Dade.
And let me jump in here again, and we might cut this piece out just because it probably won't fly on YouTube. But one of the things you guys maybe want to check out is there's the website called the IFLCC. And so the bottom line is, at this time, a lot of us knew in the medical world that things like aspirin for anticoagulation, ivermectin works, hydroxychloroquine works. They're actually drugs that work. But at that particular time, mainstream medicine was in the position of do nothing. Oh, by the way, antibiotics like azithromycin works. Is that what they put you on, Z-Pak?
I'll get into that because there was kind of a whole stepping thing that happened.
So I just wanted everybody to know, but we might cut this out, that there was stuff that worked, but mainstream doctors were so afraid of losing their license that they couldn't do it. So that we frequently on our show call this the medical industrial complex. And so I think what I'm saying is it's at least in the realm of probability that the entirety of the rest of Josh's story may not need to be told if interventions could have been done, but I don't blame the doctor on the ship, because if you're working for someone else, you and I work for ourselves. We can do whatever we want within the bounds of the law. If things would have been done right, you guys may not hear the rest of this story. March on.
Well, and that's kind of what this is where that starts. And So at this point, when I got off the ship, I've already been in contact with a doctor that I had used previously here in town. He actually prescribed me a Z-Pak. He prescribed me hydroxychloroquine. He prescribed me ivermectin.
But you're 3 days into infection, maybe 4?
Yes.
And so that's where it's like you got to get on top of it right away.
Correct.
But carry on.
And that was the issue. Is I think there was 5 or 6 things in total. And he had sent it and asked where I was going and sent it there and said, here's the things that he needs. I show up at the ER room. They take me into a room and isolate me by myself. And they want to hook me up to everything. And I kept telling them to wait. Here's the stuff from my doctor. I want to talk to the doctor, make sure that we're all on the same page. Doctor finally comes in and says, I can't give you any of that. All I can give you is oxygen, and I can put you on a general antibiotic. And if you get worse, then we're going to have to put you on a ventilator. That was their solution.
That's all we had.
Yeah, and that's all they would do. And so I said, no, thank you. And probably against my better judgment, checked myself out. Found out after I checked myself out that I had been blacklisted by the hospital as far as flying. So I couldn't come home. And I ended up at a hotel outside of the Miami airport.
And at the same time, speaking of blacklisted, there was talk on legacy media that unvaccinated people should not be able to be seen in an emergency department. It was about at this time, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Never in the history of medicine have we ever gone straight to ventilator. Ever. There's steps that you take. There's what's called positive pressure ventilation, which is like I wear a CPAP at night. Mm-hmm. Something that simple can keep your oxygen up. But the mainstream thought was, we're afraid we're going to spread more infection, so let's go straight to ventilator. But the reality is that the government and private payers would pay $23,000 to the hospital for an admission on a ventilator, but they'd only pay $13,000 for a non-ventilated patient. So do you get what I'm pointing at? Mm-hmm. I think you guys are smart enough to get what I'm pointing at too. All right, so you keep stepping. I'm just going to keep interjecting.
No, you're good. Yeah. Things. So obviously I left, and then I ended up at a hotel trying to get the medication. I did get.
So he sent you prescriptions, but you didn't know how to get them.
Couldn't get them filled.
It's another thing. Pharmacies would not fill this stuff. This is the first time in my 25-year medical career where a pharmacist told me I couldn't prescribe something.
Yeah, and they said
The first time in my career, I had to buy this stuff for my patients at heavy expense and then sell it to them because they can't get it anywhere. So you've got scripts, but you can't get it.
No, they wouldn't fill them. They filled the Z-Pak, but when they asked about the hydroxychloroquine and the ivermectin, they specifically looked at what it was for and said that they were not allowed to fill it for what it was for.
And so that's another catch, is that his physician runs the risk of insurance fraud if he says I'm sending it to Josh because he's got malaria, then he's committed a felony.
But then they would have filled it.
All right, carry on.
So I got part of my scripts, but not all of them. And so I'm in the room. I also, at that time, was when Florida was doing the monoclonal antibodies.
Right.
So the doctor I talked to said it had been too long, but that he would try it, and they did, and it didn't do anything because it had already been, I think, 5 days by that point.
Right.
But they tried it. I continued to get worse. My oxygen got down to 84 at one point.
Right.
And that's when a friend of mine, after talking to my wife thought I was going to die. So, sorry. Saying that's hard.
Oh, that's terrible, man.
So, my wife thought I was going to die.
Yeah.
And so, literally, my friend flew out there, rented a car, borrowed our neighbor's oxygen concentrator, stuck me in the car, and drove me to Texas where I had the medication I needed.
That's community right there, man. That's Castle Rock, Colorado, baby.
So
that's it.
We got to our place in Texas. I got on finally ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine, got on everything that I needed.
A bit late, better late than never.
What the funny thing was is 5 days later, I still had a horrific cough.
Yeah.
But mental clarity, ability to get up, oxygen levels, everything had gone back up into the low 90s oxygen-wise. I felt a million times different. I didn't feel like death.
Got it. And then we're not talking about placebo effect if you have an observable, objective change in oxygen concentration for doing nothing different.
Yeah. And then so after that, we drove back up to Colorado. I was here for all of 24 hours, and then I woke up with partial paralysis and coughing up blood.
Never good.
And so I went into the ER, and the first thing they said was, one, I had pneumonia. It kind of went away, but didn't all the way go away, came back, and then now I'm having a third relapse. Because they said it hadn't been fully treated because I had been so prolonged in between treatments of actually being able to be seen and what could be done.
Right.
And I had been on multiple
There
antibiotics
was no
at that
treatment
point.
offered at that time.
No, they just kept offering me the light doses of antibiotics, which just kept pushing back the inevitable.
Got it. So to end this segment, we're off the cruise ship. We're out of Miami. We've transited via vehicle through Texas. We're back home here on the eastern slope of Colorado and of the mountains here in Colorado, and all of a sudden worsening with like all of a sudden you're having paralysis. I think everybody knows what that is, and we're coughing up blood. The drama continues. All you guys, please stick around for our next segment so you can continue the story with me and Josh right here at the Castle Rock Men's Health Caveman Agenda podcast.